Yeah, joining us here on set is senior judicial analyst and big know-it-all, Judge Andrew Napolitano. You know everything about this. So,
in a good way.
Yes. He's expected to face a lot of charges when he goes into this federal court today. Do they start with little ones and then as they build their case add on, or how does this work?
Well, they only need one charge in order to keep him, and this is done in the form of a criminal complaint, which is basically an affidavit signed by an FBI agent saying, here's what we observed him do, here's what we know he said, here's what we found on him. Judge, that should be enough for you to authorize us to retain him, to keep him in custody. Then Jeanine Pirro and her team will gather as much evidence as they can from the FBI, and then she'll make a presentation to a grand jury, and then the grand jury, working in tandem with the U.S. attorney, will decide what the charges are. Okay. So we won't know the full panoply of charges for quite a while. They only need one charge for which the crime is greater than a year in jail. They already have two for which the penalty is 20 years in jail, discharge of a firearm, and possession of a firearm in a prohibited place. We won't know the exact charges until after the grand jury meets.
So we got Ryan Routh, right, down the attempted assassin for the golf course, life in prison. Is there any chance this guy gets some kind of plea deal? Maybe. Well, or is he going to get the same fate? Life in prison?
Bob, this is a very interesting, I don't want to get too hair-splitting question, but Ryan Routh aimed his weapon at the spot where he thought the president would be. And fortunately, this is the golf course in Florida.
Right.
Fortunately, the Secret Service saw it before the president got there. That's a classic attempt. This guy probably did not make a classic attempt because he never got in the room where the president was and never aimed his weapon at him. However, I suggest to you that the feds will ask a grand jury to indict him for attempted murder of the president, the penalty for which is life in prison, so that there will be a plea deal to the two lesser charges, the penalty for which would be 40 years in prison. What's his incentive? There's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel when he's 65 years old.
Yeah, but you've got this manifesto out there now, and you have at least one member of his family reaching out to law enforcement and saying, this is what he said.
I don't think any of this manifesto stuff constitutes a defense of insanity. It constitutes the manifestation of his intent.
Adds to the government.
That he's not crazy.
Correct. The government has a very strong case proving his mental state. He intended to kill him.
Well thought out, well calculated.
Correct. Okay. The question is how, for legal purposes, how close did he get to it?
Yeah.
But I think you're going to get, because the feds always do this. This is part of their modus operandi. Overcharge and accept a series of guilty pleas to what you really think you can prove.
Isn't it interesting that as these people go across an entire country to commit acts, like the guy who went to Washington and shot the National Guardsman, that at no point during that do they, find sanity? They just hate is just filling them.
But he said he was going to pick up the slack, according to that manifesto.
Oh my God.
Insanity doesn't require that the defendant prove he's insane. It requires that the government prove that he is sane. But the level of insanity in America today is he would have to think. Some psychiatrist would have to get on the witness stand and say he thought he was shooting a sack of potatoes. He didn't realize they were human beings. Right. This guy does not, from what I can tell so far, it's only been 48 hours, this guy does not come anywhere near that level of mental derangement. He seems to be filled with hatred, but he certainly is rational that he could plan what he was doing. There's a lot of Secret Service issues here, and you guys have had experts on, but legally this seems pretty cut and dry.
All right, Andrew Napolitano, Judge, thank you very much.
Pleasure, guys.